Hello, everyone. My name is Kim Franklin, and I'm the Safety Services and Professional Education Manager for the Alzheimer's Association. I've been with the association for 8 years, and I've seen firsthand many of the safety issues that can happen when families are caring for their loved ones with Alzheimer's disease. We do know that both the care manager and the caregiver play a big role in assessing for safety and making modifications to the environment to make sure the person stays safe while at home is a big step. So first, we're going to talk about mandatory reporting. It can present a lot of challenges, and we've had some challenges here with the new laws that have been put in place with mandatory reporting, and it might feel a little bit uncomfortable. We had a situation where we had to report live alone, and when we called police, they didn't really know what to do with the situation, and you guys might be experiencing some of that as well, and hopefully some of those kinks will get worked out here in the future. But we must also remember that we always want to practice within the law and use ethical practices. And do keep in mind that mandatory reporting requirements are in place to make sure that individuals do stay safe. So let's look at some statistics around elder abuse. I think that a lot of times many people don't realize how prevalent elder abuse is, and we're starting to see it come to light here, especially in our state, as we've had a few big situations over the past few years that have really shed light on this. But as many as 1 in 10 older adults and 1 in 2 people with dementia are victims of elder abuse. For every reported case of elder abuse, there are 23 that go unreported. And then 70 to 90% of the perps of elder abuse are family members, loved ones, or caregivers, which can be really startling to some individuals. So reporting helps link families to needed services, and victims of elder abuse are also 2 times more likely to be hospitalized than other seniors. It's important here to realize that Alzheimer's disease in particular can intersect with abuse in the following ways. The person may be unable to communicate that he or she is being abused, and they may be unable to recognize that they're being abused, especially when it's a family member or a loved one that's the actual one doing the abuse. And the person with Alzheimer's also may report abuse, but they may not be a reliable source or may have delusions. That said, we never want to discredit a report because a person has Alzheimer's disease or dementia. So some of the categories of elder abuse include abandonment, abduction, financial abuse, isolation, physical abuse, neglect, and self-neglect. Self-neglect sometimes can be our live-alone individuals that we come across in the communities, and this can be related to deficits in physical self-care. Maybe they're not taking care of their medical needs, their health and safety hazards, and or malnutrition. A lot of times when we have live-alones, they may have somebody that's coming in and bringing food and groceries, but they don't remember to eat, so therefore we run into issues with malnutrition or lack of self-care. So let's talk a little bit about driving. One of the big safety issues we see here at the Alzheimer's Association with wandering is driving, and we'll talk a little bit more about wandering on foot here in a second too. But some signs that it might be time for a person to stop driving. They may have some erratic driving with slow or poor traffic decisions. They may be driving too slow. Failure to obey stop signs and directional signs, and we're going to watch a video here in a second that's going to show some of that. Unexplained damage to car. All of a sudden they come home and they don't know where all these dents on the car are coming from, but they know that they definitely have not hit anything. And then difficulty making left-hand turns into traffic. You may see somebody only making right-hand turns just because it's a little bit easier. One thing we do recommend for families is to ride with a loved one and observe their abilities to continue to drive. There is a driving assessment in your packets that gives a list of the Georgia assessment programs in the area. We had a grant a few years ago where we were able to do some driving assessments with individuals who had been diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and they were done at these driving assessment centers throughout the state. And what they do is they do a cognitive test with the individual, and then they take the individual on the road and do a road test as long as they do okay on the cognitive test. And we found an alarming amount of these individuals were actually not passing the road test and were told to limit or no longer drive. So the driving assessment is a great tool if families have the option to go ahead and do that. And then other resources that are available, if you go to the Hartford website, they have a book called At the Crossroads, and then they have another one that's called We Need to Talk. At the Crossroads really deals with Alzheimer's and dementia around driving and how to encourage the person to stop driving or at least start the conversation. So those are great resources to offer to your families as well. And now we're going to watch a video that shows the driving assessment being done.
We'll get in the front seat here.
Oh!
We'll get in the front seat. There we go. So what we want to do is we want to back out and go to our left when you feel like it's safe.
What is reverse? 3 is... No.
So we want to use the reverse, which would be what? Which would indicate reverse on that?
No, that's 1. Maybe 2 is reverse. You're going to have to tell me.
The R stands for reverse.
Yes. Okay.
So,
R is reverse and N is in neutral.
correct.
Okay.
Now, I understand this is a different car for you, so that's why we're warming up in the parking lot here.
Okay. Now, where am I going?
Okay, we'll follow Leland here until I ask you to make a turn. We want to stay in the right lane here. Make this next right turn coming up. And we don't want to make sure we don't go into any oncoming traffic there. We want to stay behind the cars. Can I ask you why you're stopping here? Can I ask you why you did that?
Wasn't
Let's
there a
not
stop
stop
sign?
on the gas. No, there was no stop sign there.
It was some red up there.
So
That stop sign was for another road.
it wasn't for the road that we were traveling on. It was for a different road. Next traffic signal we come to, we'll be making a right turn. It's Big Bend Road. And we'll be making a right turn at this traffic signal. So however you can safely get us. If we have to go past it, we can.
You told me a right turn, didn't you?
A right turn, correct.
And I passed it.
It's okay. We can get us turned around and we'll go back and then we'll make a left turn.
These places have so many closed off places. I guess I residents only. I can't go up there. Dead end. Dog. Oh shoot. No, I'm trying to decide should I go up there and turn around, but I guess I'll do it like this. This is the hardest thing I had to do today.
So there you guys saw a video of an individual actually taking an on-the-road driving assessment, and I don't know what you think, but to me that was very frightening. And after we did the driving assessment grant, we actually were kind of alarmed by the outcome of the numbers and figured there's probably a lot of individuals continuing to drive that maybe shouldn't still be driving. And Again, we try to educate families on when the appropriate time to take away the car keys and how to really intervene in those situations. So that video clip is from the HBO series of the Alzheimer's Project, and I think it's a great illustration of one of these driving assessments being done. And one statistic I want to share before we move on with wandering is 60% of individuals who are missing by car are usually found outside of their county of residence. So another danger with individuals driving and getting lost sometimes is the distance that they can go. So next we're going to talk about wandering and how to prevent somebody from wandering. And this is a great tip sheet to share with families when you guys are dealing with somebody that is a potential wandering issue. So some statistics around wandering, 67% of individuals are at risk for wandering. More than 7 out of 10 of individuals with Alzheimer's do live at home. And if they're not located within 24 hours, there's a 50% chance that the wandering individual will be found seriously injured or even dead. So obviously time is very important when we do have a missing person, and we'll talk about things families can do with that. And a majority of these individuals are repeat wanderers. So once the wandering behavior starts, it is likely that it will continue. So how do families keep their loved ones safe from wandering? Doors in the house. They can put the key locks on the doors, which sometimes will work. We did deal with a situation a few years ago, though, where the wife had put the key locks on all the doors, and the husband was getting really upset that he couldn't get out because he enjoyed going for walks every day. And so what he decided to do was one day he kicked out the big picture window in front of their house and went out the window instead. So unfortunately, sometimes when they want to get out, they get very combative. The knobs on doors, they can use the child-resistant knobs, which sometimes make it harder for them to turn. Do not enter signs on doors sometimes will work for individuals. Warning bells, and this is a great way to actually help with wandering situations. If families have an alarm system in their house, we always recommend keeping the door chimes on the alarm system or arming the alarm so that you'll know when an individual opens the door. But these warning bells can be purchased at Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot. They're fairly inexpensive, and it's a great way to alarm single doors within a house. A black mat on a floor, sometimes you'll see an individual with Alzheimer's walk around the mat because their depth perception is affected in their vision, so they won't go over it because to them it looks like a hole. And then you can also try camouflaging the door. We've had caregivers that have actually put curtains up over doors so the individual doesn't see the door. Taking car keys away, we talked about driving being an issue, monitoring the outgoing and incoming mail, and keeping the person active. And this is one way to really help cut down on a person's wandering, especially if they're doing it during the night or in the evening. We have found that families that keep the person active during the day with adult day centers or just keeping them busy instead of watching TV and things like that all day sometimes will help wear them down a little bit more so that they're more likely to sleep during the night. And then again, monitoring the person at all times, really knowing when it's no longer safe to allow this person to be home alone anymore. So what to do if your loved one wanders and becomes lost? And this is one of the best tools that I think you can give to those families that do have issues around wandering. We tell them to check the general area for 15 minutes and then call police. You would be amazed at how many families wait to call police. They think the individual is going to come back home on their own, and so a lot of time sometimes will go by, which is usually an issue just because police then don't get their search started right away, and if the person's driving, they can get further away in those cases too. Then we recommend calling MedicAlert Safe Return to report the wandering incident. Even if the person is not enrolled in our safety program, we will go ahead and log the information and start the protocol on our end, which is MedicAlert gets the call, and then they contact us here locally, and we'll work with law enforcement to help get things activated like the Maddie's call in the state and things like that. And then we also tell them to have one family member stay by the phone at all times and keep the phone lines open. You'd be amazed at how many people think, oh, I've got to call all my family, I've got to call church members so we can get everybody out here searching, but then nobody can get through on the phone line. So we really encourage them to make sure a phone line stays open so that police and other individuals can get through if they need to. And then finally, providing or keeping a current photograph on file for police in case we'll need it. An example of this is if you look at the bottom here, we've got a current photo of Maddie Moore and then an old photo of Maddie Moore. And with the Maddie's call, the Maddie's call was put in place after Maddie Moore went missing several years ago and was found only 500 yards from her home, deceased, unfortunately. And this actually got things rolling with us getting the Maddie's call put in place here in the state of Georgia. So unfortunately, her family had provided that old photo to police. So that is the photograph that got blasted all over the news and media at that time. And you can see how different those photographs of her are. I don't have to tell you guys, you know as well as we know that a lot of times people change a lot during the course of this disease. They may age and things, so we really want families to keep up with current photographs just in case we ever need one. And I mentioned our MedicAlert Safe Return program. This is a 24-hour nationwide emergency response service. And what it does is it activates a community support network to reunite family members and caregivers with those who have wandered. It does not prevent wandering, but it does help unite families. Because everyone with Alzheimer's disease does have a potential to wander, we really recommend registering for this program. We do have grant funds available in the state of Georgia because we don't want cost to be the reason why families don't go ahead and enroll in this program. The enrollment cost is a $67 one-time fee and a $35 annual fee, but again, we will cover the cost of both the initial fee and the yearly fee for families so that they don't have to worry about the cost being a problem. So some of the safety considerations, home safety assessments, looking at medications, any kind of hazards, and then also thinking about fire. Is the person still safe to be home alone? One thing to think about with that is if they're using a stove, if the stove's still hooked up or microwave, do they know how to properly cook and prepare meals still? And also going back up to weapons. Weapons are another issue we keep coming in contact with is families not thinking about securing weapons or getting them out of the house in some situations. We got to think about the paranoia and not recognizing family members. So weapons are really something we do not want the person to have any access to. Wandering and driving I've talked about, and some things to consider when thinking about safety in the home. Can the person recognize danger? Does the person know how to get help if they get into trouble? Do they wander? Do they get disoriented or confused so they might be likely to wander? And then do they seem really agitated or show signs of agitation? If yes to any of those questions I just asked, we would probably go ahead and recommend that the person is probably not safe to be home alone. And then you guys also have access to this Alzheimer's Home Safety Guide. And again, it'll be accessed through the thumb drive that we'll send out to you guys. And I want to say thank you for listening to this today and thinking about all the safety things to consider with a person with Alzheimer's disease being at home. We always want to make sure that the individual with Alzheimer's is safe and that they can remain in their home environment as long as possible. Also, thank you to the Rosalind Carter Institute for their assistance with this webinar series. If you guys have any further questions or want more information around safety, you can visit our website or you can feel free to contact us here locally because, again, a lot of these programs that we have are offered at no cost to you.